The season of Epiphany, especially this particular year, focuses on the call to discipleship and answering that call with a biblical refrain, "Here am I, send me, send me." But I'd like to approach things a little differently. I'd like to talk about what I call the uncall. Those moments when our plans don't quite work out the way we think they should. And those moments can be hard on us, can be devastating, can stop us in our tracks. And so it was. Even before I was ordained, there was a buzz. Someday you'll be a bishop. I dismissed it in those early days, but once I was ordained and got into the parish, the buzz got a little louder. Parishioners, colleagues, professors, bishops all started to talk with that sense that the day would come when that would be my fate. After a while, I started believing the press. I would be bishop. I kind of liked the idea. Fancy clothes, power, all that stuff. I could get into that. My name kept appearing on ballots, and as I expected in the early days with a sitting bishop, it didn't go anywhere. The first time it was an open election, I was one of the three finalists. I was really too young to be a serious candidate, but there I was. It didn't work out that time, and I thank God it didn't. I was not in a good place. But the next time around, I'd be ready. I knew how to play the game. I knew how to do the things that it would take to become bishop. And then strange things started to happen. I started to be put in positions, chosen for offices that put me in front of people in a new way. It became obvious to me that God had called me to be bishop. It was a done deal. I just had to wait my time. Now, I started to covet the office. Everybody assumed when the sitting bishop announced his retirement, Jake, the assistant to the bishop, was a shoo-in. And I was ready. The only problem was I had never seriously discerned what God was calling me to. I assumed that God was calling me to be bishop because I wanted to be bishop, and so why not? Yeah. I used to accuse my mom of every time she started to speak on behalf of God, I said, "Mom, God sounds a whole lot like Sylvia." Well, God was sounding a whole lot like Jake in those days until God decided to speak. And then I realized that wasn't God's plan. The uncall was as clear to me as the call to go into the ordained ministry. And I'd learned my lesson about not listening then. And so I listened. Oh, don't get me wrong. I tried to renegotiate. I renegotiated hard for 6, 8 months. But the answer always came back, no. I held out hope that God might change God's mind and elect me on the first ballot, or at least make it crystal clear that that's what was supposed to happen. It wasn't a mandate by any means. I was the front runner by a substantial amount, but not anywhere near what it would take to elect on that ballot. And so I did what I heard God say. I pulled my name. It was not easy, but I knew in my heart of hearts it was right. The next morning was shock and awe for everybody but me when my name no longer appeared. I took a lot of grief in those early days. I still take grief from some of my colleagues who resent the fact that I pulled my name. But I've never questioned the rightness. God was right. What I perceived as an end was actually a new beginning. There were things that unfolded in my life, especially in those early days following that election, that would never have happened if I had become bishop. It was the beginning of my writing career. I published 3 books following that election. I've often wondered, would I have been able to spend the quality time I did with my biological mother, whom at that point I didn't even know existed? And then there's the twins. You know, would they have known their Papa Jake as well as they do had I been bishop and too busy for them? And so much more. So much more. I learned, and I've learned from others who have told me their uncall stories, that the uncall is not a dead end. It may be disappointing. We may think we've got life figured out, and then the rug gets pulled out from under us. And those are challenging times. But oftentimes, they're the opportunity for a new beginning. And that's precisely what God opens for us. As one call comes to an end, another one opens up. For God's sight is far greater and more accurate than ours looking forward than we seem to manage looking back. And so, if you find yourself in the midst of the uncall, don't lose heart. For God is about to do a new thing. And oh, won't you be surprised? Amen.